welcome Edward Rutherfurd and Louisa McCormick.
When did you decide to treat Paris?
I was lucky enough, thanks to my English family marrying since the 19th century, French people, to have huge numbers of French cousins. And so I fell in love with Paris when I was a little boy of 8, and I'm still in love with it now. And then one day my New York publisher said to me, you know, I've got an idea, which I think is wonderful. Now, I normally have about 5 or 6 books in the works that I'm sort of mulling over. And he said, would you consider doing Paris? And so I said, yes. I should just explain something for those who are familiar with my books, which are Sarum and London and all these long books. I mean, Sarum covers 10,000 years of history. So with Paris, I thought I'd just alter the structure just a little bit to make the book a bit shorter. I've got this story of people from the Belle Époque and, you know, the Folies Bergère and the brothels of Paris. There's a very, very high-class brothel in this book, I should explain, nothing seedy. And going right through the time of well, the Impressionists, there's a big love story there, and Picasso, and incidentally, in 1911, the Mona Lisa was stolen, and Picasso was put in jail for it because he was a suspicious character. And the amazing stories of the First War and Hemingway and so forth, right through to the Second World War, where my own family were involved with the French resistance. So then we do the history of Paris in these flashbacks. And at the end of all this, we have, I hope, a nicely woven tale. And that was how the book was supposed to be shorter. So I totally failed.
Now, you say that you have French family.
Yeah.
Do you think that ancestry is destiny?
And the French do this a lot. They think of themselves in terms of the past. They're always looking for parallels. So, oh, I'm like so-and-so in a Balzac novel, or, you know, oh, this is just like the French. I mean, the French are still fighting the French Revolution, and they have a revolution every little while, you know. I was lucky enough in 1968, as a teenager, I was lucky enough to be in Paris for the revolution of 1968 and to be in the student quarter and to listen to all of that. I did not, I hasten to add, I did not throw any cobblestones at the police, but I didn't try to stop anyone else from doing so. And so, yeah, always go to Paris in May. That's when they have their revolutions. Paris is fascinating because it's kind of a Mediterranean Roman government that tries to establish itself there all the time and control everything. And at the same time, you have the chaos of regional France. As General de Gaulle once said, how can you govern a country which has 300 cheeses? The culture defines how you live, and it's always there. And that's part of the echo and part of the what's moving about things, I think, is the sense that your grandparents and great-grandparents and so forth may have had very similar experiences in the same place and felt the same way. So it's a story that never finishes.
Do you always live in the places where you set your books for a while?
I always visit them a lot and write them just outside. It's the going in and coming out that makes it work. You know, Wordsworth put it, emotion recollected in tranquility.
Well, you've discovered all of these really juicy tidbits, and you managed to get Paris the novel down to 806 pages.
Thank you.
I'm curious about your cutting room floor. What tends to end up on there? Is it the fiction or the facts?
On my cutting room floor? It's mostly my blood.
Yeah.
It's like your characters. You have to know more about your characters than the reader does, or they won't come to life. You also have to like them. Even the bad ones, you have to kind of love the bad ones as well, or they just don't come to life. In the same way, you have to know more than you can ever tell the reader in the book, because if the reader knew all the research you've done, it wouldn't be possible to read the book. So it's, there's a lot of distillation that goes into these books.
There's a historical fiction writer 300 years from now. What do you think that author is going to find the most salient characteristics of our time?
I think he's going to find some of the really experimental building is interesting. he's going to be absolutely astounded that in the midst of all this scientific advance, we could still be fighting primitive wars. I think we are in the most exciting period of human history since human beings began. It's kind of scary because we don't know how it's going to work, and worst of all, we're going to be designing the human beings of the future. So we'll just have to see how that works. It's the old Frankenstein problem. But we are sitting right in the middle of the biggest change to humanity in several million years, in my opinion.